Hi, Craig. Hola, Elizabeth. Gracias por estar aquí. Thank you to all for being here. Um, I recently moved. That's why I'm in this new space. So you can see the tiger behind me. But I thought it was appropriate today for the topic that I want to talk about with you guys. And so to just start getting into the channeling, I was channeling a lot all day today. I know the energies have been like super intense, um, exhausting. We have been transmuting a lot through the body, through the cells, and well, I feel like we are still, I mean, especially the Twin Flame Collective, we're still transmuting a lot of the past timelines and transcending polarity. So, this is one of the things that we're going to talk about today, how not to fear the process of polarity, of death and rebirth, of letting things go in order to receive new things, right? So many of you may be moving, you may be getting like epiphanies of, I want to do something different with my life. I want to go somewhere else. I want to start doing more mission work, or I want to dive into my gifts. Also, a lot of star seeds are receiving. Thank you. Thank you so much, darling. A lot of star seeds, they're really being activated and receiving a lot of their gifts. So you may be having a lot of strange dreams, also perhaps even nightmares. I had something happen to me yesterday that hadn't happened in a while, which was this like dream paralysis, which feels very not good. But it was okay. But I just felt like we are closing all timelines also through the lower astral and the fourth and even the fifth dimension. So you may feel like your dreams are like all over the place or very chaotic, or a lot of past, present, future coming into the same like events, and this is also starting to alter our perception of things. So it may seem scary in the beginning because we're coming to this like new phase. Of course, we're entering the equinox, and actually in like the real time, this is like the time of new beginnings, new creations, and there's also a lot of energy that is supporting us. But there's also a lot of mental distress and a lot of mental chaos going on in the collective. So for sensitive beings as yourselves, probably everyone that's watching this, it's also a time to really strengthen your boundaries, your energetic boundaries, and to get really clear on what you want, what your voice is, and to go inside, to go into stillness. It's super important at this time. Like, even if you just have like 10 minutes a day, that you do it before you start your day, and that you give all the energy that is not yours back to the collective, that you transmute your own energies, because it's really having a toll on some of us in the bodies. Okay, so let me know if you have, in the meantime, any questions about this. I'm just checking the chat. Okay, Craig has been improving his Spanish. Oh, and thank you so much, guys, for watching the interview with Agustin. He was one of my first teachers, and it's always super fun to do things with him. Like, even though in the cut you didn't see like my part and how we were communicating, it was a very beautiful experience, and I was very happy to share his wisdom with you guys, because it's also a lot of those teachings that I learned in the beginning of my journey. They were very pivotal for me, especially to gain that strength and to gain that power that we need as, especially as advanced souls, sensitive beings, anyone who is in a spiritual path. People tend to think sometimes that, oh, you know, you're on a spiritual path and you're all peace and love and everything is just fine and balanced. And of course, we know that it's usually it's completely the opposite. And in order to get into the light, into the place of balance, we have to face a lot of our shadows, our insecurities, our doubts, and the deepest, darkest aspects of ourselves, actually. So this is part of the teaching of today. How can we embrace, you know, even the concept of death, and not just like physical death, but it is part of it, you know, it's part of also in the path of the warrior. When we talk about shamanism, death plays a very important role because it brings us back into this present moment. Of course, in many cultures, it's not the case, and especially I think in Europe and in more like technologically advanced places, death is always seen as something really scary and fearful and has a negative connotation. But in other lands, and for example, here in Mexico, we don't see death as such a bad thing. It's actually it actually has the form of a woman. It's actually a feminine energy. And she's also the carrier of blessings, and she's kind of like the divine feminine energy that carries the souls from this dimension into the higher dimensions when we leave the body. So there are so many ways to see this in particular, but I will try to bring some of the knowledge that we have from here and from the shamanic teachings, so that you have another perspective on death and how we actually face death. And we're birthing and rebirthing and facing death every day of our lives, almost every second. There is something about us that is changing and it's altering, and it is part of the organic process of ascension. It is part of evolving, and it is something that we in our deepest nature, even as human beings, we know how to deal with it. Like instinctively, we know how to deal with having challenges, with facing obstacles. Sometimes through the mind, we try to run from it. And when we run and when we hide and when we resist the changes, that's when we can create a lot of chaos and a lot of, you know, more time in the shadow, more time in the dark night of the soul. So this is going to be a teaching about some of the tools that I have gathered that may serve you at this particular time, to set yourself free, basically, and to become unstuck. If you have been feeling stuck, or like nothing is advancing, like the twin flame journey is not advancing, my spiritual path, the world has stopped. You know, I know many people feel like through the whole pandemic thing, everything is standing still. But if we take a look at the spiritual teachings and we see what standing still means, we can actually see that this is a grace period, and that every one of us has received a period of time to go deeper into our own souls, to go within and to find what we want to become, who we want to be, who we want to embody in this next phase that is coming for humanity. Many teachers and light workers call this like the golden age of spirituality. And, I think before we start seeing that, we are like pretty much in the birthing phases of that, I hope. But it's a moment where everyone who kind of like signed up to play a role in bringing more consciousness to humanity and bringing more love to humanity and anchoring peace, even if it's just through you, through your own consciousness, through your own mind, by having a still mind, a still heart, a body that is in peace. All of these things contribute. And of course, we don't have to embody all of the things, all of us. That's why we're all here together. That's why we as light workers are coming together, because we all have unique missions. There are the ones of you who will, who are already working with the elderly, for example. There are people who are passionate in working with children. There are the ones who are passionate in working with healers, like I am, for example. I am super, super excited that I get to, in this lifetime, that I never thought that I was going to be able to teach and to help other healers become healers and have the support and have the tools, and then seeing them evolve and grow so rapidly and starting to help others. So it's really an effort that we're doing all together. We're all putting our little contribution, but we are influencing everything. Okay? So no matter how stuck you may feel right now, no matter how many things your mind tells you, and especially fear-based thoughts, always go back into your heart and assess them. Okay? Anytime that you're making a decision out of fear, assess, is this the right decision for me, or is this coming just from fear? Can I come into a space of neutrality first and then make the decision? Or can I inform myself more and then make the decision? Also, what the guides are saying is that no matter what, you are being guided, right? So you have a lot of support with you. And they're saying use that support, okay? Ask questions, ask for direction, ask for, if you need movement, if you want to be more in flow, ask your guides to set you in the perfect flow for you in this moment. Because we are not, our energy is not dependent on how the world, on how we view the world. It's more like we create the energy in ourselves, in our body, in our projections, through everything that we are, through our consciousness, and then we see the world. So if you are focusing on the world first, then we're doing like the process backwards, right? So it's about going in, focusing on yourself, on where you want to be, what kind of world you want to see, and what kind of microcosmos do you want to create, even if it's just in your apartment, in your house, in your neighborhood, in the people that you see every day. Who are you in that, and what role are you playing in that? And that will start to shift everything. Okay, just reading the chat. Hi, Shay. Oh, so nice to see you here. Okay, I'm moving to a new place. Yes, Maria. I feel like I've had many deaths. As I'm changing, can go back. Yes. Exactly, Jennifer. Okay, dear Craig. We're going to see that too. To start connecting more into your power, taking back your power to create and to manifest. Okay. And sometimes what happens is that because we're very sensitive souls, or we have been hurt a lot, when we carry also the divine, all of us in a way carry the divine feminine, divine masculine template. But there are some of us who have like a very, very straightforward mission to work through a lot of karma in these lineages. So sometimes as we are processing this, it can go through our body, it can go through our abundance, it can go, like we can go through stages of lack, we can go through stages of not having, of feeling invisible, of being like a hermit. There can be periods where we just feel completely shut off from the world, just like it's happening now collectively. But these periods of time, we can use them to our favor. We are able to, if we go into it in a form of acceptance and surrender to what is happening, we can actually empower ourselves. Okay? When we fight something, or when we wish that something wasn't the way it is, when we may go into, like victim mode, or we may go into like an aggression mode and blame other people, blame the circumstances. Always when we're starting to awaken in the light, and when we start to awaken in the spiritual path will strip you of any false sense of self and all false sense of security, so that you can become the security within yourself. And what security is, it's basically the energy of union after feeling separation. And the first separation, it's not separation from your twin flame, it's not separation from your friends or other people, it's separation from God. Okay, we have talked about this a little bit, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. So when we feel this first separation, and we have these separation wounds, especially through childhood, like we come into this planet, we're like, what's happening? We come into these families, and then instead of having, our free nature and expression, very soon we start to emulate, and we start to follow rules, and we start to, become like society wants us to be, like our parents want us to be, and we start to get all the information and absorbing all the information from the world, but especially from our caretakers. If you see children, there's like a moment between like 5 and 7 where they suddenly become kind of like shy, and they lose this like free and wild nature that they had before. Many girls, they're just like climbing trees like boys would. We don't have any concept of what's right and wrong, and we are kind of like learning these concepts, right? So because we're just learning, there's this innocence within us, and there's this freedom that comes with that innocence. So we're free. Even when we are in our worst behavior, we're free, and all of us carry different energetics, different templates, and different life lessons that we need to learn. And we come here to play different characters. Some of us come here to play like very light characters, and we come here to play, a very, let's say, positive, polarized role, right? And this is, what we call the light workers. And most of the light workers also have a very strong angelic template that they have developed, and they have developed healing templates. And this is all part of the history of your own soul. But we have all gone through everything, and we all hold the light, let's say like the light feminine, the divine feminine, and we also hold the dark feminine. We hold the divine masculine, and we also hold the dark masculine, because we have been everything. there are some kids that, with no apparent reason and at all, they are, for example, bullies at school, right? And then there are the ones that get bullied, right? So we start to play in this game of polarity when we are very, very young, and then we start to identify with these things. Am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? And our parents tell us, if you do this, you're a good girl. If you do this, you're a bad girl. If you do this, you're a good boy. If you do this, you're a bad boy, right? So all of this, of course, we need it in order to behave in society, in order to kind of like function in regular society, or this was something that we needed. But as we are changing the paradigm, the knowledge that we are receiving is no longer coming only from the outside world, but in the age of awakening, the knowledge is starting to flow from the inside. So the knowledge that we receive even as children, if you see indigo children, crystal children, rainbow children, or however you call them, but children who are being born now, they have a much stronger connection with their innate, with their higher self, with their higher knowing than anything that we have seen before. And this is because we are collectively holding more energy, we have a higher vibration, and these children that hold a higher frequency are able to incarnate in the body, and the body is able to hold them too. And also when they are born, the parents have to be able to hold a certain frequency for these children to come in. And this is not something that is just for some, it's going to happen for everyone eventually, but there are just some that are happening now, right? Like everything. Some people are more advanced, some people are behind. We don't have to focus on that. We have to focus on where we are, because that's exactly where we need to be. That's divine timing, that's divine law, and that's the present moment where we are living. Okay, so all timelines, all parts of our being, all of our multidimensionality is when we are able to focus it in the present moment, we are able to access it through our connection to the divine. So many times we think we have to do so many things in the physical. We have to achieve this. We have to study so many courses in order to connect and awaken our pineal, or whatever they say, or in order to awaken our gifts. And what my guides always told me, and what I always receive from the divine, is that everything is already within you. The treasure that you're seeking has always been there within you before you even came into the awareness. It's kind of like a cell that has all the genetic information of how this human being is going to be. From the moment of conception, all that information is already there. It just takes time for that cell for those cells to start manifesting. So it doesn't mean that the knowledge is not there. It just means that you need more time to start integrating that knowledge and to become that which you already know that you will be. Just like a child, when we are little and we start to develop our consciousness, we know that someday we're going to be grown-ups. And we always think, oh, what am I going to be when I'm a grown-up? Well, the same thing applies to spiritual development and the development of your gifts and the development of your consciousness. You now know that in 10 years, 20, 30 years, you will have a more expanded consciousness. Of course, if you're, continuing the spiritual path and you do whatever you do, either way, even if it's on purpose or not, you will develop. But the speed at which we develop, that we can influence a lot. That is why we do things like meditation, That is why we study the spiritual teachings. Spiritual teachings are meant for seekers, for, they are just like the Bible. They're like the testimony of people who have gone through the hero's journey and have found keys and tools and things that have served them on their journey, and they leave them behind for the next ones. So it may help. Or just like books, just like literature or even art, there is always energetic information in everything that we create and that we leave as testimony for others. And of course, not everything that I do will serve everyone, and not everything that a certain teacher says or a certain spiritual teaching. But that's like the freedom that we have nowadays in many parts of the world, that we can go through the spiritual path with the freedom of choice, and we can see what works for us and what doesn't work for us. There are people who like to meditate and they can sit still like 8 hours a day or more, or the very like the sages, they can go into these caves and be there 3 days or weeks and go without food and water. And there are people who are extremely intelligent and have a lot of spiritual development, and they are not able to sit still for a minute because their energy is always like this. So they have to use different tools in order to come into stillness. And there are all kinds of different spiritual practices that can benefit different energetic constitutions and how you're built. So part of the spiritual path is that you get to know yourself. And in talking about death and the shadow, I was reflecting upon this before, because once you start to get out of the dark night of the soul, and once you start to feel like you start to have peace every day or most of the days, you kind of tend to forget how it was before. And then you're reminded, right? We always have new trials and new tests. But I was thinking and going back into the moment where I felt most darkness in my life. And not just in my life, but in myself, right? And I was reflecting on this because a very dear follower here, he's part of the community, Danny, he commented recently about a movie that I knew of, and it was like a pretty dark movie, let's say, from I don't know if you guys know him, David Lynch, but I'm a very huge fan of cinema, and I have seen so many like old movies. I love them, and many of those movies that were made and in those times, they were pretty dark and scary, and a lot of artists really went into the shadow to explore the shadow. And there are many people who go in to explore the shadow. There are people who go in to explore the shadow, and then they change into exploring the light. So as we gain more consciousness, we start to see things from a higher perspective. And instead of judging people who are in shadow or judging our own shadow, we start to see, okay, do I want to continue to be in this? Do I want to continue to explore this shadow? Is there more that I need to learn from this? Or can I start to explore maybe my talents, my gifts, the light? Can I start to align more with my own light and bring it in for it to see, for me to see the shadow? So in the first stages, we will see the worst shadow of ourselves. And I remember I went through this with my ex-partner, and I was laughing now, of course, but I was thinking, oh my God, like he was there with me as I was going through my dark night of the soul. And I can just imagine how scared he must have been, or how, how much compassion he felt for me, because I was really in the depths of my own shadow, dark, feminine aspect. And the worst thing was, just going back to what was like the worst part, or where I felt most in the shadow. And the worst feeling was when I thought, and when I kind of like convinced myself that I couldn't trust myself. When I lost trust in myself. And it wasn't, something that just happened from one day to another. It was a whole process of many, many years. But there was like this moment where I felt so deep in that shadow. And it wasn't even the pain or the anger or the rage or like not even wanting to continue, not even wanting to live, etc. It was the fact that I was scared. I was so scared of myself. I was so scared of my shadow. And I was so scared of not being able to trust myself with my life. And I'm sharing this because I know that many of you, or some of you, may relate to this, may have been there. And the thing is that until I got to that point where I realized that my biggest fear was that I wasn't able to trust myself with my life, that made me not trust anybody. Not even, not even the spiritual teachings, not even like nothing. I felt like there's no salvation, right? There is no salvation for me. And then what happened was that I completely surrendered. Like fear had taken everything in my life in that moment, that I had nothing more to fear. So I just surrendered everything, and I said, I have no idea what to do. I have no idea, God, how to come out of this shadow. I have no idea who I am. I have no idea why I'm here. And I don't know what to do. And thank you guys. And then what happened was that it was as if this part of me that needed to get to the bottom of my shadow, to the bottom of like really dealing and seeing everything that I had hidden from others, everything that I was told not to do, not to be, all of that, through this fear, it came up to the surface, to the point that I didn't even recognize myself. And this was a good thing, because it didn't seem like a good thing, but it was a good thing in the way that it gave me a clean slate. I lost the fear of my own fear. I stopped being afraid of life. I stopped being afraid of death, because I was already willing to give everything up. Of course, I'm not encouraging this in anyone, and I hope no one has to go through something like that ever. But we do live in a world that has challenges, that has life and death every day. We have kind of like, as humanity, have done this like turning a blind eye, because we have tried to gain control over everything, over the world, over the finances, over the structures, the politicians, over humanity, over animals, over resources. But all of that control is only held by rules that are created by the mind, right? So if you see nature, even if you observe nature for 1 second, you will see that things are dying and birthing all the time. Every breath you take is like life and death, life and death. All these challenges that we are given, they are not meant to punish us. All the darkness that we hold within ourselves, it's not a bad thing. We're not sick. We are not doomed. We are not being punished. We are not the victims of it. Of course, again, through our human experiences, we may play the role of the victim, of the perpetrator. We may play all kinds of roles because that's what we came here to do. And we came here to learn from all of those roles that we're playing. But when we are in a moment like this, where so much light is coming in, it's accelerating our capacity to process our own darkness and the parts of us that we have perhaps holding on to, but that are already dead, that we're already meant to release. Some of these things are fears that just need to die. I always had a teacher that said, you don't overcome a fear, you just throw it, right? From the highest part of yourself. You go into the highest aspect of yourself, wherever you can connect to God, and you throw your fear from there. Because so many of the fears that we carry, even the fears of our own darkness, our rawness, our craziness, our uniqueness, our weirdness, all of those things come from the conditioning and the judgment that a few made in order to control many, right? And it has been imprinted through our DNA, through our history, through norms of society. And most of the time, the people who were different, the people who were unique, the people who were who didn't follow into the norms, or who rebelled, or who didn't want to accept things just like that, those were the people that were the outcast. Those were the people that suffered. Those were the people that were sacrificed. Those were the people that were silenced. And many of those people were you. You who are listening, and me, and all the others who are now kind of like counteracting, bringing this balance into the world that was more, a little bit more going into the darkness, right? Of course, it also depends on your perspective of things. But if we kind of see human history from a broader perspective, the way that innocence has been treated, the way that freedom has been treated, the way that women and men have been treated, children. You know, I did a lot of research when I was younger about children with, like disabilities or different, because of my brother, right? I have a brother who has this mental paralysis, this condition. And it was always the ones who were different, who were kind of like seen as less than, or who were outcasted. And now, for me, the golden era of what we're living now is that exactly those people are the ones who have gone through it all, who have gone through the darkness, who have gone through their own pain and darkness, and who are able now to show the way and to help others who may still be in a lot of darkness, or who are transitioning, or who are holding both things and have no idea what to do. And it doesn't mean that we are evolved and we're perfect and, you know, we are here to kind of, you know, just teach. No, but what we're doing is that when we accept our darkness and when we accept our light with the same honor, that's when we initiate ourselves into being our own masters, our own teachers. And when we become our own teachers, of course connected to the divine, then we start to bring that energy and to show others how to become their own teachers. We start to be the living example that you don't need anything outside of you in order to become who you want to be, who you've always been. Because again, the treasures have always been within you. And some of those treasures are your shadow. Many of those treasures have shadow. But if we wouldn't go through challenges, if we wouldn't go through our shadow, we wouldn't be able to evolve, right? I always like to focus on bringing people into harmony and balance and peace and stillness. But peace, stillness, and balance is also not polarized. It's right in the middle. It's right in the middle of light and dark, right and wrong. You know, it's right there. So we get to play, we get to experience both sides. Some people like to play more in the shadow in this lifetime or through their whole lives. Or maybe they change. There's everything, and everything is possible. You can start completely in darkness and end up in the light. You can start in the light and end up completely in darkness. But for ourselves and in the spiritual work that we do, it's about not fearing what is there and not resisting what is there, but embracing it. Just like you embrace your qualities, embrace your insecurities. Allow them to be there. And many times when we embrace our insecurities, when we embrace our fears, when we even accept that we have been programmed, or that something that we're thinking is a program, you know, we are only able to become aware of this as our consciousness expands. And how do we expand our consciousness? By connecting to the divinity within us. So that is why spiritual practice is so important. That is why I always do the emphasis on that, because sometimes we think that, you know, a healer with a magic wand is going to come and boom, go like this, and everything is going to be okay. Or, you know, a teacher is going to show us a path, or is going to give us the key, and that is going to happen. That will happen for sure. But that is not what determines how you advance in your journey. What determines how you advance in your journey and how you develop your consciousness is by how much you spend time with yourself in stillness, in connection with the divinity within you. Because you have the access to your higher knowing. All other knowing that comes from anywhere else, it's valid, but it is also tainted by the perspective of that person. There is a divine knowledge that comes, and that just comes like this, and you don't even have to be very, you know, whatever. You don't have to be anything to receive that. You don't even have to be good or bad, or there is nothing like, oh, you have to behave like this and this. No, it's more about you being with you, developing your consciousness. And consciousness itself, the more you develop your consciousness, that gives you a higher perspective. And the more you have a higher perspective, the more clarity you have. The more clarity you have, you're able to make decisions from a higher point of view, which considers both the negative and the positive, but is not caught up in any of them. And it is not caught up on judging or praising too much. It's just in a neutral place. It's just in a peaceful place. So consciousness will alter everything. It will change the way you think, the way you feel, the way you look, because it's divine intelligence, it's divine energy. And we are all the holders and the channels for that divine energy. Thank you so much for the donation. Thank you, guys. So for you to have more strength, more power, more intelligence, more clarity, more intuition, all of these things that we usually seek in the spiritual path, the only thing you need to do is to sit down, be with yourself, surrender to the light, connect to God. You don't even have to do a guided meditation. You don't even need to, do all kinds of spiritual practices. You can and you may, and it's wonderful, and that will always add to your journey. That will always add to where you have to go and where your soul is guiding you. But the most important thing is that you learn how to listen to your soul. That's when the journey starts to become a little bit easier. That's when you don't feel the burden and the responsibility of the whole world and of your whole life and of all the decisions that you make. Your soul starts to make the decisions for you. Your higher consciousness makes the decisions for you. And as it does, we develop our trust. So the trust in ourselves is one of the most important things that we can cultivate. Because so many times we are ready to trust other people, where people tell you, oh, I see this and this. Oh, okay, you're right. And we're in a time where that's not working anymore. I mean, that can be helpful if you have already established the trust within you, if you have already established the knowing, where anything that people say to you, you question it. You don't take anything as law because you already know that we are all completely different and that we all have our unique perspective on things. And that no one has the full truth and no one, has all the answers. The one who has all the answers is within you. And I'm saying this as a healer, who, like, my daily job, my daily routine, what I do is, heal people or provide that channel for people to connect to themselves. And of course, I use all the tools that I have gathered on my journey to bring healing. But that healing mostly is for them to be able to connect to themselves better, for their body to be able to heal itself better. So we can learn and we can receive the knowledge, and we can, have very important teachers sometimes. But I remember, for example, in my experience, I honor my teachers so much. I respect them so much. Some I even just saw once, and then I never saw them again. But the part of me that was completely seeing and surrendering to that was a part of me that was seeing myself in them. They provided a mirror for me to see myself, to see something about myself that I had never seen. And this is what we do for one another. And this is what a spiritual teacher does. This is what a healer does. This is what a counselor does. Ideally, of course. But it's more about that reflection, that many times we're not able to see how angelic we are. We're not able to see our gifts. We're not able to see how beautiful we are. We're not able to see how loving we are, how deserving we are, how strong we are, how brave we are. And sometimes we need to see that in someone else. And I always said since I was little, like when people told me, for example, oh, you're this and this, I always said, you can see that because you are that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see that. So when you see divinity in a teacher, when you see light, when you see God in a person or in an animal or in a creation, in whatever, you're partly seeing that, but you're only able to see that because you are also embodying that, because that is already inside of you. So we can start to identify with our divinity, with our power, with our strength, instead of identifying with all of our weaknesses and all of the things that we don't like. And that's how we slowly let go of those things. And we start to become who we really are. And when you are in stillness with yourself, when you are meditating, when you're just communing with the highest aspect of you, you receive comfort, you receive support, you receive guidance, you receive encouragement, you receive all of these things that perhaps you won't be able to feel or to hear or to sense, and you're just thinking, I'm just here sitting in my room like a crazy person with my eyes closed. But I promise you, the more you do it, the more you will start to see how it feels. You will start to get to know yourself. How does my stillness, my divinity feel like? How does my energy feel like? How is my divinity interacting with my human? In life, we are always a mixture of this. Because we're embodied, we have our human side, we have our angelic side. But they're not fighting and they're not opposite. They're actually here to work together. They're like this. I remember I talked a little bit about this with Michael on our interview. So instead of, always seeing, polarity, also feminine, masculine, light and dark, this and that, we have to take a stance. We have to take... Yes, of course. But in the spiritual path, we're here to embrace everything that presents. And the more we're able to go into that higher consciousness, the more we're able to see perfection in everything. Even in destruction, even in pain. The way that we are evolving our souls is based on how we face everything that happens in our lives. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beautiful. Everything. And even the worst thing that happens, you have the capacity to face it from a place of peace and balance. And that's your choice. Or you can face whatever is happening from a place of, desperation and sorrow or whatever. You don't have to be how others told you to be. And you don't have to react the way others react. I remember when I was little and going to a funeral, I was there and everybody was crying and there was so much sadness. And I was there and I wasn't sad at all. And I was actually, aware that the soul was still there, and actually the soul of the person, it was a family member, my godfather actually, and he was still there, and he was, happy. I mean, he was it's not even happy, it's just a state of being light, right? He was just consciousness. He returned to being light, to be consciousness. Consciousness is everywhere. So I remember, feeling bad at what moment, because I thought, maybe I should be crying. And I was like, everybody's crying. Maybe I should start crying. And I tried to cry and I couldn't cry because in my heart I knew something different. And I perceived the whole scene and everything that had happened very differently. So in that moment I said, no, I'm not going to, why should I cry if I don't feel like crying? And this is, just a simple example, but many times in our lives, and especially as children or as younger children, adolescents, we do so many things to fit in, to be normal, to be accepted, to be loved. And when we really regain our power is when we actually see that we can reparent ourselves through consciousness. Like maybe we couldn't do it when we were children and we suffered what we suffered, or when we were younger, or when we weren't awakened yet. But once we awaken, it's like we have this second chance to do it all over again, to reparent ourselves, to be the mom and the dad that we didn't have, to be the cheerleader of our life that we never had, to be the businessman or businesswoman that we never had, to develop whatever skill we want to develop. This programming is so real and it goes so deep sometimes that we even think that we're bad at things that we're actually really, really good at. So always know that you are like a blank canvas every day that you wake up. If you want to become a successful chef from one day to another, go for it. If it makes your heart beat and if it makes you feel joy, go for it. And if you want to drop something, a burden, a thought, a belief, you can just drop it at any given moment. We don't have to perpetuate the belief systems that were given down to us, especially by our parents, especially by our caretakers, or by the world, or our classmates, or our country, or our culture. We can choose what we identify with. This can be confusing sometimes. For me, it was something that I had to learn very early on because I had so many layers that I identified with that I saw everything as potential. So instead of saying, I am blue and I'm just going to be blue for the rest of my life, I was like, okay, so I think I have a couple of colors here. So I'll just give it a try with each one of them and see what they bring to the table. And this was cultural, this was like my family background, my parents, the languages that I speak, the mixture already in like in just in the human side, right? And then I had all these weird things that I thought I'm very weird, like most of my friends don't have a brother like mine. Most of my friends don't have two half sisters in Switzerland and speak Swiss and have like a father that was crazy traveling the world and has also all kinds of nationalities, and then married someone who comes from a very small town that is indigenous, and so there were so many layers there that when I was little I had so much to identify with that I decided that I was going to either identify with all or with nothing. So that's also a choice that we have always. There's a reason, of course, that we are, born in a certain body, that we are born into a certain family. There are also karmic reasons. There are things that we are working on, but are so wanted to work on them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be living them. And that's something that the divine part of us and the higher consciousness of us knows and accepts and honors as a mission. And that's a part of us that are human, questions and is afraid of and distrusts because of the pain, because of the challenge, because of the sorrow. But all of these things, even the pain, it's also part of our experience. We are all brave here. We're all courageous here. We didn't come here to just be in, where everything is just perfect, because we came from there. We already know how it is. There's a part of us that already knows how it feels, and that's why as humans we strive for that. But know that also all of the pain, the challenges, the difficulties, the moments where you feel stuck, where you feel like you're about to give up everything, where you just don't even know right from wrong, up and down, all of that is also meant to teach something very important to your soul. And it's also meant to make you develop and become stronger. It is a fact that people who face a lot of difficulties in their lives and a lot of tragedy in their lives, they develop much more compassion, much more rapidly for other people. When we have these signatures, even if they're cultural signatures, someone who is half indigenous or indigenous holds a signature and knows about the pain of their history, of being conquered, of being whatever happened to them. And when we see someone else who holds the same signature, there's this understanding. Not always, of course, but energetically, there is. Or when we are, when we see someone from our own country in a different country, and it's like, oh, we talk to them and we speak our language. There's a connection there. There's this, also this like thing that kind of, we identify in the union. And if we go further, when we become spiritually awakened, we identify in union with everything and with everyone. Even our worst enemy, we love them. I mean, I know not everybody agrees with me on that, but for me, the reason that I came into this path and that I ended up being here and like helping and assisting, or through my sharing my experiences of my own life and how I overcame the things that happened to me, it was always founded in this love for humanity and for the world that we're living in and for life. I'm in love with life. And I'm in love with everybody. Like when, of course, not in a romantic sense, but everyone who comes to me, or, like they say, if you spend enough time with someone in a room, you will start loving them. Because we identify much more in union than we do in separation. Especially all of the ones who are awakened right now. Usually the people who are not awakened, they tend to identify more in separation than in unity. When we identify in unity, it means that even the worst person that you can encounter, or that has completely opposite values of you, or that represents, everything that you are not, or whatever, you don't see it as a bad thing. You see it as someone that is also worthy of love and that is evolving, just like us, just like we. And nobody's perfect. Like, not even the spiritual teachers. We all have our human side. We all have darkness. We all have our light. The only difference is that we just start to share how we overcome certain things. And people shared with us how they overcame other things. And we start amplifying the connection, amplifying our consciousness. And then we just become the channel for God to come through, for this energy to come through, for love to come through. But we don't really matter as as a thing, you know? It matters what comes through us. And there is no obligation also for no one to be perfect. This is one of the most harming thoughts that there are, this strive for perfection in the feminine and in the masculine. Because every time we strive, we're saying we're not perfect, right? And many times that perfectionism causes self-criticism, and self-criticism causes, us not to value ourselves. And if we don't value ourselves, then we project this into the world, and then the world doesn't value us. So this is why I teach self-love, self-compassion, why we always go back into the basics. Because those basics, if you start to use them for you in your own way, you can heal yourself. You will see that you will heal yourself. You don't have to learn all fancy methods or, spend hours in courses or whatever. You need to just listen to yourself, listen to your heart, and activate that connection with God. Listen to God. Because listening to you and listening to God is the same thing. You are the God. You are the goddess that is here. And the more safe you feel with yourself, the more you trust yourself, the more you will be able to fully step into this human body. And the more you will just become that. And there are different times for this to happen, but it's already happening. Always we can take note of time, but we can also set our intention, set our purpose. And this is, not just setting intentions like when people do intentions to manifest or whatever. It's more to if you want to experience divinity, you can. You just have to open the door because you're already divine. Life is divine. So many things have taught us that, life is mundane and, this is just like a glass and this is boring. Well, if you really see it from a higher consciousness, you're like, this is the craziest shape looking thing. And, somebody got this material and made it, and now I can have water and I drink water. There's wonder in everything if you're willing to see it. There is magic in everything if you're willing to see it. And that's the intention. We can go from a very mundane existence where everything is just boring, for example, or where we think that we're trapped. And by changing the way we see things, we can make things divine. We can make our daily life divine. a lot of the work that I did as an artist and that I still do was to bring divinity, especially into those places, or to sanctify places that were completely abandoned and overlooked and that were considered just inactive spaces. Also objects. I used to do like huge installations with old objects, things that weren't serving anymore. And I would set them in a way, and I would do like a ritualistic installation where they would actually become sacred. And I would set the intention to sanctify not only those objects, but the space. And the objects became just a channel for the energy that I was bringing in. And then the people who connected to those objects saw them in a completely different light, or saw those places in a completely different light. And people would tell me like, oh my God, like you're crazy. Why are you, doing this whole thing here in this abandoned tennis court that is like really ugly? Why don't you, do something in a place where it's beautiful? But I have always found that in those places, like any place can be magical. Any person can be magical. Any part of ourselves can be magical if we decide to treat it that way. So if you want to receive your gifts, if you want to expand your gifts, then start seeing yourself and your life as a gift. Start seeing the gifts that you already have. And I promise you that they're there. Even in the deepest shadow, even in the darkest place, there's always a treasure, and there's always this capacity to illumine that, to bring that divinity there. When I was little, my parents, or I don't know who told me at one point, they told me like that I was very shy, when I was little, like 4 years old or something. I kind of believed in that for a couple of years. And then when I was 7, I was like, I don't feel like I'm shy, like I want to experience something different. Like I want to be the opposite of shy. And then I started to, like to do theater and like dancing in front of people. And I was always the one who would do the choreographies. And then I started to teach the younger girls to dance, But it was just a choice. And of course, I didn't have all this baggage and all these things about, oh, but you were shy. How are you going to be on stage? You're going to be nervous or whatever. That inner dialogue didn't exist because I didn't have enough information yet about it. So I was able to shift very quickly. And sometimes we need to give ourselves the chance to do that, to forget that we're insecure, to forget that we're afraid of spiders. Maybe you find out that you're not, and you surprise yourself, and there's a miracle right there. And those are those little things. But life is made out of those little things. And each little thing, each little moment, you can sanctify it. You can make it divine. Even a moment of pain, of sorrow, it can be divine, it can be transforming. It just depends where your consciousness is in that moment. So if you feel like it's here, or it's here in your mind and you're thinking all of these things, try to go into stillness and bring that consciousness up to that part of you that has a brighter perspective, a broader perspective. And that will always show you more clarity and more truth. Okay. Oh, so glad to see you guys. Hi, dear Jen. Oh, thank you for being here. Okay, guys. So, this was a bit what I wanted to talk about. And, you know, just the message that I was receiving to not fear what is within you. Because it's like we are given both things, you know. If we're giving the challenge, we're also given the antidote. If we're giving, you know, like the venom, or how they say, we're also given the antidote. Okay. Okay, guys. So let's go into a little bit of healing, if you guys are up for it. And then we'll go into some of your questions. Okay. And then we'll close. I hope I was able to answer some of the ones that I had already received through what I just said. Okay. So you can drink water if you want. Drink a little bit. And you can relax. And just close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. One more time, take a deep breath in. You can lay down for this part if you want to. Shout koya kai bale anatare maurum hoi shetawa nahao pawala hate pautuana pairane akawa. We're going to start to ground, start to feel our feet on the earth. Now I'm feeling this beautiful violet energy and also pink coming in, violet from the feet, the pink and the magenta from the sky. This is starting to heal through the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Bring in the acceptance, the love, the joy, the honor, the respect for all that we have done, for all that we have endured, learned, evolved up until this present moment. Starting to feel these two golden spirals activating through your spiritual channel. And they look like the caduceus, the kundalini serpents, just rising. We're starting to release a lot of the baggage, the genetic information, the programming from our lives, from our previous lives, even from the people, from our soul group, from the people that we engage with, from our monad, our logos, and beyond. We're starting to see these beautiful angelic beings, healers, this golden and white energy coming down, surrounding each one of you, providing protection, comfort, safety. And they're going into your heart, starting to cleanse the heart, going deep within, removing any darkness, any shadow, any debris, any old energies, any lack of faith, any lack of self-worth, any tendencies to go against ourselves, to dim our light. And we're activating a white flame at the heart and a beautiful pink flame surrounding that white flame. And it starts to release all of this darkness. It starts to illuminate your heart. It starts to bring in more confidence, more trust, more understanding of who you are in your journey, what your journey is about. And they're showing me like everyone with these like fairy wings, bring in this magical aspect of you, starting to see your magic, to feel it within your heart. And allowing that divine, benevolent energy to take the lead, to take you through your journey smoothly. And this is creating a path that's going straight up until your third eye, your forehead, and your crown. And it starts as pink, and then it starts to turn into a baby blue. And from the crown, it starts to go up into the higher aspect of you, into the higher spheres of knowledge, wisdom, into that part of you that knows exactly who you are and what you came here to do, what you came here to be. And they're starting to show me this beautiful egg. It looks like a cosmic egg. And they're talking about this alchemy and our ability to alchemize even the densest things in our lives, even the things that we consider to be of the material world, matter. But we have this gift within us to transmute through our connection to the higher realms any emotion, any thought, any physical condition. And they're showing the like the philosopher's stone, the codes, divine light, alchemy. And this is a knowing that comes from within. You don't have to know how it's happening, but you can make it happen. You can intend it to happen. You can create it. So many of the things that our eyes, our physical eyes, don't see, our higher self sees all. Our consciousness is able to see through the invisible, and it is able to see all of our multiple layers and dimensions. The fact that you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. We actually have more creative freedom. We can engage through our imagination and our inner knowing and our inner magic to create in the physical. Through our heart, through our purity, through our innocence, through our connection to the divine, and through our trust. And we're starting to work at the head, removing any pain, any insecurities, any doubts, especially when we're about to leap forward, when we're about to change our lives, when we're about to step into a completely different version of ourselves. That's when a lot of fears can come in, our doubts, or wanting to go back into the past, into what is known. And this is bringing in, through our deepest nature, through our human courage, through our human experiences on this earth, all those challenges that we overcame. They are like golden and green energy. They are strength. Every time we overcame a fear or a challenge, it became a strength. So we're gathering all of these strengths through all of your lifetimes. Bring them back into the heart. Bring them back into your channel. Bring them back into your awareness and your consciousness. Building up your trust. Every time you did it, your trust grew. Your trust in yourself, in your divinity, in your capacity, in your potential. You can shape yourself. You can choose the colors, the flavors. Heuru umiere hala ate ko uleama ura sheta alu kore uma umahauro to doroma ala araire ma areta ana pur uria uruma ala le hala akai de la remore kumare tarara moro shorumuro oto hale elae kai ma alieta anea etara. I'm seeing this structure as if they were edifying you as the masculine and edifying you as the feminine. I see this coming in through Atlantis and Lemuria. And these are beautiful blue energies and green and turquoise and very pale blues. coming around your fields to protect. And they're saying that we are creating the cities of light as if you were your own city of light, your own temple, your own sanctuary. And again, we're seeing a white flame in the center of that temple. And the flame burns all the way up and creates this beautiful ray, white ray, that goes all the way up into infinity. And it strengthens and it builds forward. And it brings more of the inner knowing and the trust in what we call a future and what is meant to be in the divine plan, the divine it's like a map, the divine plan unfolding. Okay, and now they're bringing a beautiful like triangle that is around your heart, and it's also in this white and blue energy. And this is just continuing to cleanse, to center you, and to allow you to anchor, to feel more protection. They're saying to find your center, to find your balance, to find that equilibrium, great stability through this shape, the shape of the pyramid that allows you to be grounded and strong and have a strong human foundation. And at the same time, you're always connected to the stars, to God, to the divine. And you reside in the center as the divine child, as the divine being. And now we're seeing this beam out of every one of you, everyone who will connect. And we're also connecting all of these structures together, activating more light, more trust, more purity, more innocence, and more protection of all these higher attributes, of all your angelic attributes and qualities. They are your gift and your power, and they're also your strength. And they're saying you have everything you need to face, to be present in your life, in each moment of your life. And this is a miracle that was given to us. We're just going to seal all in the divine light of God. A lot of angelic protection, peace, toning, for some even gravity anchoring you into Mother Earth. Protecting your light. And so it is. So very slowly, continuing to breathe in deeply. And when you feel ready, you can start to slowly come back into your body, into your heart. Thank you so much, guys. Please drink a lot of water if you can. And if you feel like going to sleep or resting now, it's a good idea. Thank you. Okay, guys. Yes, I could also feel the energy. Like, thank you. Thank you for all your donations, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for being here, for doing this work, for listening, for being you. So I hope this helps you through this week. I will just go and check some of the questions. I think we addressed a couple, but I know it took a lot longer than I had anticipated, as always, a little bit. But I'm just going to see if there is something that I'm meant to answer here. And for everyone who is, on a twin flame journey or is working with the feminine and masculine, we're going to do a light language circle on the 31st with Jen from Created by Indigo, with Heather, and with Danielle. Heather from Angel of Divine Love, and Danielle, the Resonant Witch. So all four of us are going to be together again. So if you want to sign up, you can go into Danielle's website, and I hope I will see you there. I also want to just let you know that I'm opening registrations again for Brave. It has been like one of the most amazing experiences that I have had of working very closely with other fellow healers who want to, step into the world and serve more broader. And we have had a lot of fun, a lot of very profound and deep experiences. We have met a lot of very amazing spiritual teachers that I have invited to teach the master classes, and overall it's just a beautiful group, beautiful community, and the development has also been amazing, and I'm so happy that I get to be a witness of that transformation. So if anyone is feeling called to step more into the role of healer or teacher or light worker, whatever way you do it, if you feel like you're ready to serve more broader, if you want to start to create your own community and just bringing more of your light into the world, and if you feel like you would need a little bit of guidance and you could benefit from the experiences that I have had, then I invite you to, you can write me an email or you can contact me through my website, and we will start next round on the 21st of April. So the sooner you write to me, I send you an application, you fill it up, and then we have an interview or conversation, and then we see if it's something that you would like to do. Okay. So thank you so much, guys, for everything. For anyone who is in the chat, if you have any last questions or anything urgent, anything that you would like me to answer now, please do let me know. I hope you guys know that I appreciate each and every one of you. I know some of you have been a long time with me, and you're all doing your work as bringing light into this world. So thank you for doing that. And I know it's not an easy path at all. Okay, so I will close today with that. I will take a look at all the questions. If I missed something, I will do either a live, again, a short live, just answering questions, or a live on Instagram. Okay? So I sent you a lot of love to everyone. Be good, take care, enjoy, and I'll see you soon.